Hello everyone, welcome to the 6th episode of Talking to Unicorns. This is the second time I've tried to record this. The first time we just started chatting and I just noticed I hadn't been recording this, but here we are, second try. This is episode number 6, and today I'm talking to a good friend of mine called Alex. Alex is a web designer, web developer, and Webflow expert from Auckland, New Zealand. Alex, how are you doing?
Good, thank you, Connor.
This is so weird because we literally just did this. So it's funny doing this again. Either way. So I've known Alex for ages. We've talked a lot about freelancing related topics. Specifically, one thing that I wanted to get you on the podcast, on the video for is to talk to you about pricing, because we've always had fantastic chats about that in the past. But first of all, for everyone watching, can you give us a bit of like an introduction to who you are, what you do, the kind of clients you do work for?
Whew, recording, great.
It is recording.
I'm a designer and developer. I have a studio called Studio Almond with my wife, Monica. We've been running in Auckland for 5 years. Before that, we actually were a digital publishing startup in Berlin, so we're doing apps and stuff. We've basically run our project's quite bespoke, so we're not doing any kind of template solution or anything like that. And we have been doing quite large web applications and as well as websites and apps, but now we're kind of just mostly websites. Happy to go into that transition if we need to.
Yeah. So I'm going to link to the projects that you do in this video down below, because the work that you do is really like high end, super awesome stuff. And you've also recently redesigned your website, which I highly recommend everyone checking out. But what I want to talk to you about is, so the stuff that you do is very bespoke, very niche, very high end. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I'd be really interested to know is like, how do you pick the high end market as like your target market? How do you even land your first client in that industry? Because I know a lot of people struggle to charge at all, and you're charging like at the high end. So how did you get into that?
So we'd always been doing quite large projects, which would generally come with higher fees if you charge them appropriately. Mm-hmm. But as a lot of freelancers will know, or will soon realize, that if you're billing hourly, you're generally going to become, if you want to earn more, you're basically not going to be able to suddenly just double your rate. So you almost have those two levels of professional service providers. You have those who charge for their time and are generally providing a service as maybe dictated by the client. But then you have those freelancers who actually are being paid for results, and you have to be able to deliver those results. And if you're delivering results, then you can actually dictate what you're actually charging, because you're actually billing for those results rather than the time that you spend. It's definitely a risk, because you do take on, you have to be really good mm-hmm. and know what you're doing. You can't just suddenly go, oh, well, I'm going to achieve these results and here's a huge fee. You have to actually show that you can do it and how you would do it.
So when you started freelancing, or when you started your studio 5 years ago, did you start by charging for time, or did you start by charging for results?
So I was charging for time. Before I came to New Zealand, I was in the music industry for 7 or 8 years. And that's where I started as a designer. Then one of my bosses recommended, oh, there's these things for iTunes you can build. And then I basically saw that you don't earn much money in the music industry anyway. So I was like, oh, well, if I can build these custom experiences on iTunes and sell them, then I can essentially like double my salary. So I spent 6 months learning how to do like front-end development, and then started building those up. So essentially, when I came to New Zealand, I hadn't actually worked in the traditional creative industry. I'd been in the music one, so I had no idea how much to charge. So I actually freelanced at a few agencies for about 4 or 5 months when I first got here, then started up very quickly, saw that you had 5 people doing what one of us could do, like Monica and I could do. So we were just like, okay, well, let's just, at the beginning, we just charged what we were comfortable charging, which was pretty bad because we weren't really comfortable charging anything. So I think we were something like $50 an hour or something when we started. But in the space of a year, we were like $100. And then you realize that when you're comparing your work to kind of other stuff in the market and other professionals, I didn't realize that I was already a senior. So I was so naive coming into it. And then that's when you kind of hit the bit where you're kind of working out, well, hang on, how do I actually increase how much I can earn? And it's not through hourly. So so I did the thing that actually got me onto the way I price now is actually through a web podcast called Syntax, which is run by 2 web developers. And they actually mentioned a pricing guy who they'd kind of recommended. And I read a few books on that stuff, and that's kind of what got me into it.
So just to come back to charging so when you were still charging for your hourly rate, so what is like the main problem that you discover over time? Is it just the matter of like that you cap out and how much you can make? Or is it more that you realize that as you're getting better at what you're doing, that you're essentially making less money? Or what is kind of like the main breaking point that will shift you to that next type of the other way of pricing?
So it's basically like 3 things, and two of the ones you mentioned. So one, you're looking at how to make more money, and then traditionally people are like, if you bill by hourly hours, the only way that you can grow in revenue is to hire people, which is the route that we went. And very quickly realized that isn't actually what we wanted to be doing. We didn't really want to grow a team. Because then, okay, well, if you're billing $100 an hour and you think you can hire somebody to do half, but you can't go and pay someone with your experience, you hire a junior and then you realize that they can't do anything near kind of your quality, then it just kind of all falls down. It doesn't really work. So there was the point of trying to work out how to make more money. There was the frustration of actually having to record the time, because the clients just, they're not paying you. They don't care if you spend 10 hours building a website or coding. They want to have the website at the end. That's what they want. They want the product that you've told. So what we found is if you give minimum, maximum estimates and things like this, it doesn't give anybody security. You also spend a lot of your time tracking admin and sending reports and all this stuff, and it's just completely unnecessary. If you were able to remove all that, then it frees you up to actually focus on the actual project rather than how many hours you're doing. And no client wants to get an invoice, oh, I thought it would take 10 hours, it's taking 15, and then you're having a discussion on, you're negotiating getting paid for what the work is taking. It's just really uncomfortable and just unnecessary, really. So that was definitely a motivation. And I can't remember the second reason you said. What it was, so making more, and then also
because as you get more efficient, or as you get better, you get things done faster. So
if you're billing for your time as well, you're basically getting penalized for being good at what you do. So if you did a project and it took 100 hours, and then you do the same project for somebody else and it suddenly takes you 50, you're losing money. Whereas the only reason you can do it for that time is that you gained the experience necessary, and you might have lost money on the first job, but now you can make money on the second one. That's up to you. So it doesn't make sense, you know.
So that makes complete sense. So it makes sense why you would go from the point of being like, hey, I don't want to get paid for time anymore. I want to get paid for the results that I deliver. But there are like a lot of questions that I think people have when it comes to charging for results. And that is, first of all, who determines what the result is? You know, like who determines like the value of something? So say, for example, I come to you and say, hey, Alex, I want a new website.
Yeah.
How do you determine what the value is that you contribute to building this new website?
So you need to, one of the things we first thing to say to clients is we won't work with them unless we can guarantee a return on investment. Because a lot of companies or individuals look at a website as a cost, whereas it should be an investment. So the only way you can do that is by going, okay, well, what's the actual purpose of this? And generally, not that these can't be good clients, but almost the hardest clients to serve or to measure success for are the ones who go, oh, I just want a pretty website. So how are you going to measure if it's actually the job is achieved? Because you can make a pretty website and, well, it looks different, but how are you going to know if you actually completed the job to, satisfaction or more? So you really need to be coming in there, looking at it and going, okay, well, what is the actual goal of this project? And asking some pretty big questions like why even do it? I can just give you an example of someone who came into us the other week and had a website, and they said they wanted to redesign it. And we're like, okay, well, what would happen if you didn't do this? And they then proceeded to list off 10 things which were causing them huge problems, like spending $4,000 a month on patching things and taking 20 hours a week of their time when they should be working on the business rather than the website. And they listed all these things combined with, I think in this case, they were making $500,000 a month on revenue on an e-commerce site. So very quickly you can see, okay, well, if you save them $4,000 a month, and over the year, it's like 48 grand or whatever it is, suddenly there's a value right there. So if we can remove that, how much would you pay to not have to, right? It's a kind of idea, like if I gave you $1 and if you gave me $1 and I gave you $2, you'd go for it, right? You're making money. So as long as you can kind of deliver on a return, that's the important thing. And it's always, the value is always in the eyes of the client. They're going to value it to some extent. Yep. So you need to work out what those drivers are before you're sending a proposal or anything like that. You need to work out what are the key metrics you're going to actually change, and then use those. And you can generally work out, looking at what type of business it is, or asking questions, how much they earn, how much they charge, not how much they earn, but how much they charge. And what would happen if you actually did this project? Would it make more money? What would happen if you moved 1 or 2% of sales? What would happen? So generally you need to be charging a portion of that. So if you're going to make them $1 million, they're not going to say no to you charging them $100,000. So yeah.
So have you ever, okay, so there are 2 questions I have on this. The first thing is like, do you ever have clients who, so you sit down with them, you take them through this process. Do you ever have clients who go, well, how long will it take? Like, I get it. You're going to help me make like an extra $1 million, but how long will it take? Does that still become a problem? Because I still feel like a lot of clients, especially in like more like traditional businesses, tend to think that the only way to compensate people is for like the time that they spend sitting at the computer thinking about about their business. Do you still run into that a lot?
Not in terms of, there's definitely the question of how long it will take in terms of the project start to finish, but it's more of a time frame for when it's going to be launched. There's never been the question of how long are you actually spending. That's never come up. So yeah, because I think at the end of the day, if you could pay someone, let's say you pay someone $3,000 for a website and it's a fixed cost, do you want it to take 2 days or do you want it to take it 3 weeks? And they're probably going to want it in 2 days, which just shows they don't really care how long it takes. You just want the final result. Yeah.
So, and then another question I have about results-based pricing. And so obviously it's a pretty easy one. If like your client has like a monthly recurring cost of $4,000 to patch all sorts of random stuff on their old websites, it's pretty clear what the incremental value is that you add to the business by changing that up. But how about, for example, someone having like a really average looking website and like something doesn't, and I don't know, it looks all over the place, the navigation doesn't make sense, and it's clearly impacting their costs. And you coming in and redesigning their website will increase the amount of sales that can be made on the website. But because it's kind of like, because you can't possibly know, for example, how the conversion rates will change,
Yeah.
do you ever have clients who say, if you kind of make like estimates on how it will improve their websites, do you ever have clients who say, well, you know, if you say you can make me an extra 500 grand a year, can you guarantee that? Do you ever find yourself in those situations?
Yeah, once or twice we've had that situation where they want us to guarantee it. And this is where you need to be charging a lot for it. Mm-hmm. Because if they want, I can't remember who I actually learned this from. I think it was from Chris Doe from The Future. Mm-hmm. And he was saying like, if you, it's got a video on it, but like if a client wants you to guarantee, let's say you've got an e-commerce site and they're converting 3% of their traffic into sales and you want to increase it to 5%. You could give a client a huge cost, go, okay, we'll increase by 2%. And say you charge an extra $50,000 to do that, right? Mm-hmm. Then you've got $50,000 to get the best people in the industry or specialists in that exact area, if you even needed to. Yeah. And you can do that, and then you can give them a guarantee, but okay, we might work until it's done, knowing that you can get it done. So you would have to then give a guarantee in exchange. So you can pay for this, but then you then need to think about the guarantee you would give. Would you work until you hit that percentage? How long would that percentage have to be maintained for, and things like that? Mm-hmm. Definitely, if you're getting up there to guarantee a percentage, then you need to be charging a lot of money but you need to be able to accurately measure it as well, so you can prove that you're achieving it. So yeah, bit risky if you're going to definitely confirm a percentage, but you need to then be charging appropriately for it. So.
Got a few more questions on pricing because I just love talking. I feel like you know so much about pricing and like the business strategy behind things that I'm just going to dig a bit deep into this.
Sure.
And that is, I think like a lot of people are going to watch this and going to be like, oh, value-based pricing, that's where it's at. Say you just start off freelancing. Mm. When is value-based pricing something that you start from day one? Or is that something that you do later down the track? Or is that something that you do with specific clients? Or what are your thoughts on that? Like when you're just starting out as a web designer?
So I would have done it sooner if I knew about it. Mm-hmm. The problem the thing you have to be careful of is you need to ensure that you can achieve what you're promising. You need to be able to deliver it. Over the years, I mean, the first time I built an iOS app, which was maybe like, I don't know, 10 years, 11 years ago or something. I'm not sure the iPhone was out then, but basically pretty near the beginning. One of my friend, I'd given like a fixed price for something actually. I didn't really actually realize what I was doing at the time. I'd just given a fixed price. And my friend said to me, you haven't even delivered an app to the App Store. How can you guarantee this? And I was like, well, I know it can be done, so I'll work it out. So that was just my way of going about it. I didn't think about the money. I just thought about making sure that I could deliver what I said I would. The difference now is that I know how to do it and make money as a business. I think you just need to, I think you can definitely start out doing it. You just need to be clear in what you're delivering and know that you can deliver it. Because clients love knowing that they're not going to pay more than what you'd say they're going to, you know, if they add things in, of course, change the price. But the idea should be that you go, okay, you work out a budget for achieving X, Y, Z. And then you go, okay, well, here's the budget. What can I do for it? Rather than going, oh, it's going to cost 2 hours there, 5 hours there. So you actually end up thinking less about scope, which is quite interesting, but also an area to be careful of. So, so I think answer to the questions, I would start it as soon as possible.
Nice. Okay, that's good feedback, because I kind of feel, yeah, I kind of completely agree. It's like, yeah, the sooner the better, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if you charge your client hourly, you have to deliver no matter what. So knowing that you have to deliver no matter what, you may as well just come up with a price that your client knows is what it is and that you can work towards.
Yeah,
fascinating stuff, Alex.
I think the main thing to take away as well is that when we do this, we're not charging necessarily above the industry or the market norm either.
Mm-hmm.
It's a case of we're not breaking down, this is 5 hours, this is 10 hours. We're not doing that. We're knowing what the cost should be in the industry based on the experience, and we're charging appropriately for it. So yeah. Okay.
Nice. Well, let's jump away from the pricing a bit. I feel like we could chat about pricing and business strategy type stuff for ages. But another thing that I want to talk to you about is Webflow, because you build all of your sites in Webflow. So for people who don't know what Webflow is, it's basically a visual website builder, which creates HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and instead of writing it from hand, what you can do is you can drag and drop it together. I'll post a link below, which is definitely going to be my affiliate link. And yeah, so can you talk a bit about how you got into like Webflow? Because that's a pretty niche kind of area, and it's a reasonably new tool as well. But I feel like that might be super interesting for anyone in the web design space, or anyone in the UX space, or even web development space right now.
Yeah, so I've been using Webflow for about 5 years now. And up until recently, half our work was custom code, so React, Node.js, kind of JavaScript development stack. That's for like the large scale web applications, but then our websites have mostly all been on Webflow. Before Webflow, I was on WordPress, and because at that time I was charging a lot less, you'd often have clients come in, okay, we've got $2,000 or $3,000 for a website, but then generally you don't have enough budget there to build a custom theme or whatever it is, so you're generally having to hack things or use the same theme to build a site, and then you have design restrictions on what you can do. So Webflow actually came up a few times on my radar before I actually started using it. And in the end, what we found is that it just gave us creative freedom to design whatever we wanted and not be limited to a budget or what a WordPress theme could do, and then also not deal with all the like PHP crap, where it's like white screens and just all that horrible database stuff. And over time, just with like the web applications that we've built, we do have some that we're still working on, probably ongoing, maybe two. But we probably won't be doing any more in custom code, because what we've found is that because we're results focused, when we sit down with a client and work out the result, what they want to achieve, it can be achieved through Webflow. Whether it's integrating other systems or custom platforms, whatever it is, APIs, you can still bring that stuff in. But Webflow is the base for everything. And it just aligns with our personal business strategy, which is, as we're a company of two, we don't look to put clients on retainers. So if we did 20 websites in a year and we had 20 retainers, it suddenly reduces our work for working on new projects. So it is a bit of it doesn't give you security in our business model, or this part of the business doesn't provide security because we're not charging retainers. It's just a level of work we then get provides the security. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Webflow we did a few sites on it, and then every time we thought about maybe going back to WordPress, it was never an option really, because Webflow could just do everything we needed to. Mm-hmm.
So do you build your sites predominantly in Webflow now, or do you still do custom builds?
It's mostly Webflow now. some projects that we have which are custom will stay on those custom development stacks, but everything else, if we got a web application project in tomorrow, we'd be building it around the Webflow stack.
That's super interesting because like you come from a web development background, like, because I know like a lot of web designers, which I know you are as well, but like a lot of people who are predominantly designers are the people that have adopted the tool. I feel like every time you talk to developers, they're very hesitant about switching over to a tool like that because it's perceived as like a drag and drop tool or whatever it is. But would you say that just looking at it purely from like a workflow perspective, that it's had a better impact on your business, or like it's been easier for you to build sites than say custom coding?
Yeah, 100%. Because even there are some situations where it's not suitable, and that depends on the end product. Like, if we're building the front end of something, it's going to be exported and then put into a custom platform for somebody. It might not be appropriate to use Webflow, although you can. Yeah, I think the kind of motivation is just a lot of time with the custom platforms. You're setting up servers and databases and all this stuff, and it just takes so long, which is why it is expensive. But there's also a case of you've got to be careful on what you're using. So I think there's something at the moment, I can't remember what it was called actually, but it's a bit like it's providing backend functionality which you can then integrate with Webflow so you can make web apps. Now, you've got to be careful because you can't suddenly go, okay, well, I'm going to build a web app for somebody for $50,000 who's going, if they're paying that much money, is going to be expecting a really high quality product. You can't just go and base that whole project off something that's been around for 2 months as a system, because it could be out of business in 6 months and you've screwed yourself and your client. You can't do that. So you have to be really, really careful. So there are limitations on what you can do. But for what we're doing, which is predominantly websites now, and then web apps built around Webflow, it's perfect for what we need to do, and we don't really need to look at anything else right now.
Nice. Click my affiliate link down below. All right. So let's jump into like the last section of this interview where we talk about how people can become web designers. So say like graduates coming out of university, people who have kind of always been into web design and want to transition into freelancing, and just kind of go over like some tips and tricks or things that you have learned along the way. I know we've already talked a lot about pricing, business strategy related things, but what do you think are like some of the key things that you would recommend someone focus on if they want to get started as a web designer, web developer, Webflow expert?
So probably just worth pointing out actually that I didn't go to uni and do design. I did geography.
Nice.
And then ended up in the music industry, and now I'm a designer and developer. So I think you need to look at what you want to select. A small niche. Don't try and do everything. It's taken me 13 years to work out I don't want to do everything. And as soon as you stop trying to do everything, you actually end up making more money because you can get better and better rather than being I think it's that argument of generalist versus specialist. Try and appear as a specialist in one thing, and then in the background be a generalist in terms of researching and trying new things out. But I do have a book recommendation actually, which would be ideal for any freelancer. It's behind me. I'll just grab it. Get it. So I wasn't planning on doing this, and I don't have an affiliate link, but this book is Design as a Job. Yeah. It's by Mike Montero. If you Google him, he's been completely trolled by Americans because he is anti-gun. So if you see anything on him, he's basically been completely trolled and destroyed. But essentially, just the book just essentially teaches you how to run your freelancing business or your company, and all the mistakes that they've made, and just how to protect yourself, really. Like classic stuff, like charge 50% on any job before you do anything. Don't touch it until you receive the deposit. Stuff like that. How to, all that type of stuff. So But if you want to be a web designer developer, pick a tool that you ideally Webflow through Connor's affiliate link,
Correct.
and just get started building something. I think the thing to remember as well is that as long as you can build and actually produce something, it's going to be of value to some people. And then you need to just learn how to communicate the value that you can deliver. I know people over the years who have really wanted to get into web development, and they definitely feel that they know enough, but then they feel scared to take the leap in terms of actually start doing professional projects. But the reality is you just need to get started. It's always something you can do and learn. So yeah, I think definitely do your reading on books like this, which just give you the basis of how to operate, and kind of get your pricing strategy down. You don't need to be charging loads. You just need to know what you're doing to some extent.
Nice. So that's an interesting one. So that's a good book. What were the other? I feel like we were talking about some other. Oh, yes, I know what we were talking about last time. Was have you done like any courses or anything that have helped you with becoming better at business, or like what are your thoughts on investing in things like that?
Yeah, I definitely think you should be constantly. See, I think this is actually ties back to the development thing. Is that if you're in the creative industry, you generally you've got a lifetime of learning and getting better. And I just found that I didn't want to spend my time always learning, catching up on development. I wanted to basically get better at business, and then use like things like Webflow and Figma to do that. So you definitely got to invest in yourself and spend money on courses. Definitely, and then just consume podcasts as well. I think Business of Authority, which is the one I think I sent to you, Connor, is definitely a great one. Especially right now, they've got stuff around, creating revenue streams and doing courses and things like this. If you can establish yourself as an authority or specialist in what you're doing, then it's going to be a lot easier for you to get clients and make money. So.
Yeah, for sure. I love that podcast. I listen to it like quite a bit now. So I'll link that down below along with my Spotify affiliate link. No, that's cool. All right. Well, Alex, where can we find out a bit more about the work that you do?
So website is almond.studio. Just to clarify, Almond has nothing to do with nuts. It's just a collaboration of my name and Monica's name. So
nice.
Yeah.
Oh, man, why did I never know that? No, I didn't know that. Makes sense though.
Yeah, it's the AL from Alex and then the MON from Monica, and then Monica's maiden name's Dam, so that's a D at the end. So Almond. Or Almond. I can't remember how I used to say it as a Brit or Kiwi or whatever I am now. So.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, cool. Well, I think with that, we have hit the 30-minute mark, so I'll wrap it up. Alex, thanks so much for taking the time. I always appreciate chatting to you. You know so much. You are so wise. Alex has also contributed quite a bit in the forum, so if you are watching this, jump over to the forum now, comment on this video, say hello. And Alex, thanks again for taking the time to jump on this call. And yeah, this is it. That was episode number 6, and I'll see you back here next week. Bye.